So today we're going to talk about vocabulary. And vocabulary is really knowing about the knowledge of words and their meanings. By having vocabulary in a student's language, it enables them to be able to read and not have to constantly stop and wonder and figure out context clues about what's going on. It's a tool in a toolbox. That's why the picture on this page has to do with tools in the garden. We need tools to do our work in the garden. We need tools to study and learn about vocabulary and to keep increasing vocabulary as we go through school so that we can have great reading comprehension. And our whole goal here is great reading comprehension. So along that lines, that's what we're going to talk about in our vocabulary section. My background is as a middle school science teacher. Really vocabulary dependent. A lot of words kids haven't heard of before. However, I think if we ever get them to recognize those words, they'll start seeing them in their environment, and that is what this activity is all about. This is called the Vocabulary Hotshot Notebook. This is actually an activity out of the textbook from our class. The sheets are going to look something like this. And what I want you to remember is that the Vocabulary Hotshot Notebook has a date that they first see this word. The date that they're first going to see this word is going to be in class. So they're going to write down today's date in our case, which is July 6th. And then we're going to write down the word. The word that we're learning today could be seismic. It could be weather. It could be mountain range. It depends on what we're studying in our science unit as to what we're going to make our word. But we'll write it down in the very first column. And then we're going to go across and we're going to write about where did we hear this word. In class, most times it's going to be from a video, from our book, from discussion in class. It's going to be an in-class resource that we're talking about writing into the second square as we go across our Vocabulary Hotshot Notebook. We're talking about today's date. Today we see this word. And then we're going to say how this word was used. If we're talking about an Alaskan adventure, the mountain range that we're speaking of is in the story. It talks about the explorers were climbing the mountain range. That's how the word was used. Somebody's climbing something. It must be something of size. So that's how that word was used. It was used in reference to being an object to conquer or to scale. Two other words that kids may not know, but in their own language we'll be able to figure out a way to reinforce that terminology. And then we need to write down what it means. So we have 4 columns going across. The new word, where we heard it in class, how it was used, and what it means. So we can even talk about in class that today a new word we're going to be talking about is volcano. And what does volcano mean? And here it is in our textbook, and here's what it means in our textbook to our story. There are three total possibilities for inclusion into our Hotshot Notebook. This whole half page is for one word. So we want to, for class, we're going to fill it in all the way across. Tells you up at the top what to do with it. Even it gives you a spot at the top to put the vocabulary word. So if we want to make it mountain range, we can make it mountain range. What we want them to do is to keep a notebook with these sheets in it. And they're going to go home and they're going to start listening. And whether it's in their homework, maybe they see this word mountain range again whenever they're doing their homework online or through reading a different book at home to reinforce the text. Then they'll record when they see it, what source it was from, how it was used, and again, what does it mean? Did it mean something different in the context they heard it in, or did it mean exactly what it meant at school? There are times whenever a vocabulary word will have multiple different meanings, so kids will hear it, and then they'll find out at home it doesn't mean the same thing. So this is our opportunity to reinforce whether this word has only one set of meanings or multiple set of meanings. And then we want to have a third opportunity to hear that word. So this is 3 opportunities to hear a word, once in school, twice outside of our classroom at least, whether it's at school or at home, and to reinforce the idea that vocabulary, once we learn it, is something that we're going to hear over and over and over. The idea of the Vocabulary Hotshot Notebook is to introduce new words. They get credit for doing the activity. If they hear it a second time, extra credit can be given, however it's chosen to be done in your classroom, or if there's a minimum number of times you want to make this to where it counts towards credit in your class. So that's the Vocabulary Hotshot Notebook for my vocabulary section.